get started in just a few minutes here. You see we got some people coming on, so we're going to give it just a few more minutes. Okay, let's go ahead and get started, Michael. So I'm Kyle Smith. I'm with Intertech Global. We're your host today, and I'm the Inside Sales Manager here. And then with me today also is our presenter, Michael Wilburn, with the INFLOOR Heating Systems. So to go over a few things here, just a little bit of housekeeping. I've got an error on my screen. I apologize. Just one moment. Alrighty, thank you. So what's going on today? So INFLOOR Heating Systems, how to choose the right manifold, brass versus copper. Then next week, on October 5th, we're actually going to be hosting a FanTech Heat and Energy Recovery Ventilator session. A frequently asked question, will this webinar be recorded today? Yes, absolutely. We'll be sending out a follow-up email after the session, and we'll be able to get that on YouTube to you shortly. So then we'll go ahead and move on here. And then need anything at all, please use the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen for GoToWebinar, and you can ask questions there in the Questions tab. And if you'd like to chat or anything else, feel free to go ahead and use that control panel there. At the end of the session, we'll be able to take your questions and be able to talk to Michael about those and go over those then. So I think we're ready to go, Michael. And so everyone, this is Michael Wilburn, and he'll be our presenter today and talking about brass versus copper manifolds. Take it away, Michael.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Wilburn. I'm with INFLOOR Heating Systems, and today we're going to go over on how to choose the right manifold for your project, whether it's brass or copper. And we just want to give you the differences between the two so you can make an educated decision on which manifold to use. INFLOOR Heating Systems, we've been a pioneer in the radiant industry since 1984. We're based out of Buena Vista, Colorado, and we take great pride in offering products that are innovative and heating and solutions, designs that help our clients live more comfortably and healthy while saving energy and money. We mainly specialize in hydronic radiant heating. We do offer electric cable systems as well for small bathrooms, snow melt systems. We can assist with the design of solar thermal systems. And all of our designs are original designs. We use the LoopCat program to help determine the water temperature, tube spacing, and heat loss for our different products. Why we should be your preferred supplier is because we know radiant. We've been doing this since '84. And what we like to consider ourselves a one-stop shop for all things radiant. In other words, we like to put together packaged systems, and that's why we enjoy our relationship with Intertech Global, so that we can assist them in designs on the radiant portion of the system, and they can assist with the geothermal side of the system. We've got over 30 years of experience. We use cutting-edge, innovative systems. We like to pride ourselves on the premium parts that we provide that'll last for a long time. All of our major components include good warranties, Again, what I said earlier with the LoopCAD design, that's the preferred program for our design program so that we can provide original detailed designs that provides you the material list and the proper calculations for putting in the radiant system correctly. And then we like to say that we have standout service and customer support. My staff is available for any questions on radiant at any time. So let's get into this. Brass versus copper manifolds. Which manifold is right for you? We offer both the brass and copper manifolds for heating systems. What I like to do is explore each one of these manifolds and point out the differences so that you can make an educated decision whenever you're choosing the manifold that will work best for your application. We like to say we make radiant simple. Manifolds play an important role in a radiant heating system. The manifold is basically the hub of where your tubing connects to your manifold, and then from your heat source it would connect to your manifold. And this was basically, if you want to think of it as the veins and arteries of the system, and the heart being the heat source. And that way we can make sure that we circulate the fluid through the zones correctly and make sure we get the correct flow rates. You know, each one of our manifolds has a variety of adapters, end caps and fittings, and assemblies that can be purchased or customized to our manifolds in the way that you see best fit for your type of application. So let's look at our brass manifold. Brass manifold, of course, is made of brass. They come completely assembled here in the USA. This gives you a lot of design flexibility. Our return manifold is offset about 1 inch forward from our supply manifold so that the tubing will pass behind the return manifold really easily and not bind. All of our brass manifolds come completely assembled, and that includes the automatic air vent and purge valve, both on the supply and the return. And we include a supply manifold valve, which is indicated with a red handle, a return manifold valve, which is indicated with a blue handle, and then we have isolation valves, micrometric balancing valves, which would be for actually balancing the flow in the system. And then we have the white caps or the shutoff valves, where if we're doing a system where we're going to subzone, which means we actually want to open and close individual loops at a manifold, that's where our telestats would be mounted, would be where it's indicated in number 8. And we use this a lot whenever we're doing master bathrooms and master suites. A lot of times people like to have their master bathroom kept at a higher temperature than they do their master suite. And it also can help to adjust for floor coverings, because many of the master suites are done in carpet and the master bathroom is done in tile. And we found that the homeowners would prefer for that tile to be a little warmer when they get up in the morning compared to sleeping in a little bit cooler temperature. This is actually our preferred manifold, and one of the reasons that this is our preferred manifold is because with our LoopCAD design system, whenever we design the project, it's going to give us a water temperature and a flow rate. And if we use the brass manifold in our reports, it will tell us exactly where to set the micrometric balancing valve based on the water temperature and the flow rate required for that particular loop. These manifolds will accept 3/8, ½ inch, 5/8 and 3/4 inch tubing. So these manifolds could be both used in residential applications as well as in shop applications where we're using 3/4 inch tubing and with longer loop lengths. They can also be used with our PERT tubing, BPEX, regular PEX, or PEX-L-PEX tubing, just by changing the Euro fitting that connects to the manifold. We sell our manifolds without flow meters, but we can add flow meters to the return side of the manifold. And the reason that we do this is because in a residential application in the inside of a house, you may only need a flow meter that will do 1/4 to 1 GPM, whereas if we're doing a shop application where we're using 3/4 inch tubing or a snow melt application, we have flow meters that will do 1/2 to 2 GPM or 1 to 4 GPM. And these manifolds are reversible, so if you did not pipe in on the left-hand side of the manifold, you can undo them from the manifold brackets and switch them to go from the right-hand side, or if you supply from the right and return from the left, you can just flip the manifold around and it works exactly the same. We also offer manifold cabinets. The manifold cabinets will allow you to put it in the stud bays, and then they come with all the equipment to where the manifold can be mounted in that manifold cabinet, and that keeps all the rest of the trades away from our manifold, to where if we're using telestats, it'll make it easy to wire and nobody will be in your way. And then we also offer copper manifolds. Copper manifolds have been used in the industry for years and years and years, and it's because they're pretty simple to put together. They're less expensive than the brass manifolds. They we normally do a valve on the supply side and do no valve on the return side. And with these valves, we don't have the advantage of actually being able to set an exact flow rate, but if you were installing a system and you have several 300-foot loops and then a 150-foot loop, you can actually close that valve down to slow down the flow in that 150-foot loop to balance out your manifold. We have these in various sizes, anywhere from 1 inch up to 2 inch. We do offer a manifold mounting bracket that covers all of those sizes. That it is probably the most economical way to put in a radiant floor system is with a copper manifold. The thing that the contractor needs to know is it does not come fully assembled. So there is going to be more labor to install these manifolds, but the labor compared to the product price could be offset. INFLOOR sells our copper manifolds. We have a 1-inch main with 3/8 drops with and without valves, 1-inch mains with 1/2-inch drops with and without valves, and then 1.25-inch mains with 3/4 drops with and without valves. And those valves, all of our valves already come with the PEX crimp fitting attached to them. They're all in 14 loop configurations. We've designed them to be cut down in the field. You can order them pre-cut in custom sizes if you're working on a specific project. These type of manifolds work really well with single zone applications. And when I mean single zone is if you were to use a copper manifold system in that same master suite, you would have a manifold for the master bath and you would have a manifold for the master suite, which means you would have to also run 2 supplies and 2 returns to and from that area. They are a bit smaller than our brass manifolds, so a lot of times they can be fit in a 2x4 wall if necessary. So this is where, these are some of the questions you need to ask yourself whenever you're trying to choose which manifold is going to be best for the project. You know, what is the project budget? Is this a project that is for low-income housing? We would probably lean more towards the copper-type manifolds. What is your overall scope of the work for the project? I mean, do you have the availability to run several supply and return runs to remote manifolds that are using copper, or can you only get one supply and return manifold to an area, and then you would have to do a subzoning at your manifold, you know? And then we look at which design method are you using. Are you doing a staple-up application, or an INFLOOR board, or in concrete or gypcrete? Because that'll help you to choose the correct manifold. If you were doing a staple-up application where you're going to bury the manifold in the ceiling, you're probably not going to use a brass manifold there. You would probably use a copper manifold with an access cover. Will the system use water or propylene glycol? We need to know that information more for the design side of the system, and that way we can calculate the correct flow rate and head loss. And then, of course, we always ask, what is the head pressure, flow rate, and heat loss? The heat loss is what's going to determine our water temperature, our flow rate, and if we're using glycol or not, that's what's going to come into a contributing factor of whether we're going to use what our calculated head pressure will be. And then how long is each loop? That again affects the head pressure of the system. And then you should be able to understand your loop layout. INFLOOR, we like to provide loop layout for all the projects, and we work hand in hand with the Intertech guys to make sure that we can clearly give you the way the loop should be laid out in the project. That way we can determine whether we're going to have subzones at the manifold. We can tell you how long your loop should be. We can recommend what is the best size tubing and how many loops are there, which will impact on what size manifolds you need to use. And then how many zones are there? And then we, of course, ask again, are there subzones at the manifolds? So if we're using subzones at the manifolds, we would definitely recommend using the brass manifold, because that'll make your wiring and your supply and return runs easier to lay out. The most important aspect of determining which manifold is right for you is, again, the project budget, understanding what your customers want. And when we say that, we're talking more about whether they want that master bathroom and bedroom separated into two separate zones. You know, knowing the specific design needs for the projects, like when we're designing for geothermal applications, we limit the water temperature to 110 degrees to work best with the equipment that Intertech provides. And then you should always have a proper design plan and calculations. Then again, we refer to our LoopCAD program where we're laying out the loops and providing those calculations. And based off of the LoopCAD program, that will give you the number of loops, the loop length, the number of zones and subzones, and your installation requirements. And then based on how much tubing and your manifolds, and that's going to give you an idea of what your labor should be and what kind of costs that are going to be involved in the project. And then we put this little, did you know brass and copper manifolds can be used together in the same project to reduce labor and cost? We do this quite often. If we have a large great room, living room, kitchen all in one zone, we'll probably put that on a copper manifold to reduce the cost, because we're not going to have to individually open and close those loops. And then in the master suite, we would put a brass manifold, and then if they're heating their garage, we would put that on a copper manifold as well. So you just have a lot of different things you need to look at whenever you're choosing the right manifold for your system. So, Kyle, do we have any questions?
Yeah, it looks like we got a couple. And I will say, Michael, thank you very much for that. That was awesome. And everyone, please feel free to use our design services department. We work hand in hand with Michael and INFLOOR, and we'll provide a number of different sales tools off of that design. So not only the layout, but also the ROI on the project, an estimate on all the materials needed. So, and then we'll also keep that for as long as we can on the project, so we keep a little job folder forever in our program. So here's one question, Michael, that we got. So which one is constructed the best, and why?
I would believe that the brass manifold is probably the best constructed, simply because we have a lot more options with that manifold. We can actually dial in the flow rate a lot better with a brass manifold, and it also gives you air elimination on both the supply and the return, and it gives you the availability, and it gives you isolation with the ball valves. Whereas if you were to use a copper manifold, you would have to add the isolation valves and the end pieces. So
okay,
I would definitely recommend the brass if it's right for the application and the budget.
Okay. Here's another one. We've got some questions, or we've had some questions on stainless steel manifolds. There, I guess, is the question of what are your thoughts on stainless steel, and how do they compare?
I think stainless steel manifolds are really good manifolds as well. The reason that we've chosen to go with the brass manifolds that we provide is because of the quality of brass that we get from our U.S. supplier. I can tell you, since we introduced this manifold, the brass manifold, in 2008, we have yet to see a failure in the field. So we feel very confident with that manifold, but I know they make some great stainless steel manifolds out there, but we have not really pursued that.
So those have a higher cost, you think?
I think that the stainless steel manifolds, depending on where they're coming, because there's a lot of stainless steel manifolds that are in the market that are coming from China that are extremely inexpensive, and it's just not something that I'm willing to allow our company to provide, because I don't want to jeopardize any of our long-term customers with using an inferior product.
Right. Okay. All right. So here's the last question that we have so far right now, anyways. And I'm kind of rewording this, but we have our combination unit available. So the question is which manifold would be best for when you're only doing concrete slab application in the basement of a house, and conversely, the other one would be if you were doing the same thing in the garage, because with our combo unit, we get that question all the time. I want to do the garage and the basement. Well, we can't do both, but you can choose one or the other. So which manifold do you think would be best if you were to do the basement or the garage?
If I was doing a garage application, I would definitely use our copper manifolds, because you're not going to be subzoning that garage application. But if they're doing the basement, it really depends if they're at any time going to finish that basement in separate areas. Now, if they were going to do an application like that, I would recommend the brass, and that way they could initially run the basement as one zone, but if they added 2 bedrooms and a bath down there, and the loops are configured correctly, then we could change that into a multi-zone system without having to repipe anything. So does that answer your
Gotcha.
question?
So like, yeah, I think that's you know, like partially finished with storage that could be
Right.
configured later to
To be a
with a growing
bedroom.
family, if you will.
Yeah. And then without having to even get into the water side of the system, we would be able to change the zoning in that basement just with some wiring.
Right. Nice. Well, awesome. That. Oh, here's one more question we have.
Okay.
What's the largest brass manifold with the most circuits, you could say? What if we have more circuits? What if we have more circuits, series or parallel piping with multi-manifolds?
Right. So the largest manifold that we offer in the brass is a 13-loop manifold. We offer that both in a 1-inch main and an 1.25-inch main. So if you have an application to where you're going to have to use 2 manifolds, which I've done quite a bit, what we normally do is at the mechanical room, we would supply each one of those manifolds with its own supply and return run, and then use our thermostat configuration to bring on both manifolds at one time, whether if you were using a HSS buffer tank where you have 2 pumps going, 1 pump into each manifold, you just bring on both those pumps with one thermostat. But you would not actually pipe those manifolds in series. You would want to parallel pipe them if you're doing a piping configuration where you're supplying one large main and then you're returning with a large main. You would want to pipe those in a parallel configuration but do reverse return, and that'll even out your flow.
Ah, right. In regards to buffer tanks, I guess I have one last question here.
Okay.
Does it matter, I guess, is if it is a non-pressurized buffer tank setup like the B&D HSS, or what about if it's pressurized like the new HydroConnect from GeoFlow?
On the pressurized system, I would recommend brass manifolds, depending on, again, the budget and the application. The nice thing about the brass manifolds on a pressurized system is that you have air vents on there, so you guys can, the system will constantly eliminate any air entrainment in the system. Now on the non-pressurized system, those air vents on the brass manifolds can create us issues by absorbing some of that oxygen whenever the pumps are not running. So on those particular systems, I would recommend our copper manifolds without air vents.
Okay, right. Okay, good idea. Okay. Well, right now it looks like we're pretty clear on questions, Michael, and so we'll be sending out a follow-up email to everybody that attended today, and with our recording, if you guys would like to watch it or pass it along to other people in your businesses. And if you have any questions, have any design needs, anything at all, please contact us at Inside Sales at Intertech here, and you can contact us at our email address that's there on the screen or at 618-664-9010. And just one last plug and one last reminder is our webinar on October 5th with Fantex. So anyways, Michael, thank you so much, and everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.